space satellite networks. I'm not sure exactly where we're going to go tonight, folks. I was asked to do this yesterday. So I'm going to kind of keep it hyperdrive-y, but kind of give it a big tech sort of a spin. And we're going to look at quantum. We're going to look at quantum satellites and go from there. There's some YouTube techie cat video, Twitter, YouTube techie cat video things that we'll look at later. But for now, let's look at some satellite stuff. I found this the other day, and this satellite patent really interested me. Hang on, that's not sharing the right window. Must be, yeah, it's this one. All right, good. There we go. So this pad right here is a large-scale quantum cryptographic key distribution network. And it talks about distributing quantum information over a satellite network, integrating it into a land-based network. Chad, I see you out there. How you guys doing? I figured quantum kind of fits in the hyperdrive realm, and I haven't studied this patent in its entirety yet, but nonetheless, it needs to be shared because this is really the underpinnings of what we're constructing with 5G. It's going to take the existing fiber-based network and integrate the tens of thousands of satellites that are going up to create point-to-point connections with things like cell towers and dishes and all these things that are on top of buildings. And ultimately, it's going to create an environment whereby quantum communications can occur just as frequently and abundantly and seamlessly as what we understand wireless communications to be. So we're gonna review a little bit of what's in this patent, and then we're gonna move on to something else because I don't want to spend too much time. But basically, what this thing says, it's from Verizon, and the patent was submitted in 2006. Which means that we're, 15 years in on this. Thumper, for those of you that are wondering, Thumper is out campaigning for Mr. Colt. So that's where he's at. And I'm glad he's doing it because that's physical action. That is action in the physical world. So it's a very good thing. What we do here is also good, but literally putting foot to ass in the field. That's where it's at. So I'm grateful to be here, and I'm glad he's out doing what he's doing. So this thing right here, space-based satellite device obtains one or more encryption key symbols. This is for secure comms, secure encryptions via satellite and land-based networks in the quantum information field. It's a device that transmits one or more encryption key symbols to multiple nodes on land in a land-based network using quantum cryptographic mechanisms. So really what this patent gets at is it's able to understand if there's somebody intercepting, right? So it says right here, to combat the inherent deficiencies in key distribution process, researchers have developed a key distribution technique called quantum cryptography. Quantum cryptography employs quantum systems and applicable fundamental principles of physics to ensure the security of distributed keys. So when you think of sending encrypted information, when you see a secure socket layer, SSL, in your browser, or when you send banking information or encrypted email, those are all mechanisms by which the information is sent over the internet. You're thinking it's secure, that it's safe, that it's not going to be hackable, crackable, intercepted. Well, quantum kind of puts all of those other systems by the wayside. They claim that this is completely uncrackable, and we're going to kind of look at why, because it's sort of listed here in this patent. And it's kind of important because when we try to hold people accountable for what they do over the internet, if there are systems of encryption out there that prevent accountability from being had, then there is no recourse. There's no ramifications. So that's why I feel it prudent to share with you something like this, because these technologies exist. They're now in the commercial sector. And they've moved out away from the military realm. They're now in the commercial sector, and the sky's the limit with respect to being able to transmit information securely without it being detected. So it says here that they use the fundamental principles of physics to ensure the security of distributed keys. So it's just a fancy way of saying secure, encrypted information being sent over the internet. And Heisenberg's uncertainty principle mandates that any attempt to observe the state of a quantum system will induce a change in the state of the quantum system. So what that means is that if the information is looked at before it gets to where it wants to go, where it needs to go, if it's looked at all, it changes the information itself, which by definition corrupts the information. So the information cannot be looked at except by the individual who has the appropriate key. It could be anywhere. It could be on this planet. It could be on another planet. It could be anywhere. And we can look at things like quantum entanglement if we want. I have another a video to share with you. It's called quantum teleportation. That'll kind of blow your mind a little bit. We'll look at that after this. So it says here that when very low levels of matter or energy, such as individual photons, are used to distribute keys, the techniques of quantum cryptography permit the key distributor and receiver to determine whether any eavesdropping has occurred during the key distribution. Quantum cryptography therefore prevents an eavesdropper. In this example, they use the name Eve, right? Eve, eavesdropper, from copying or intercepting a key that has been distributed from Alice to Bob, without a significant probability of Bob or Alice's discovery of the eavesdropping. So in this patent, it talks about land-based optical networks, including fiber optic-based networks, space-based or Earth orbit-based satellite networks, having a controlled or being controlled by a key management system. They can distribute these keys on land and or up in the satellites, all on the same network. And the satellite to Earth networks, they call them free space links because they're still sending photons, whether it's over fiber or over wireless. When a wireless internet connection is really just photons. That's all radio waves are, is just a certain energy in a wave. The more the greater the energy, the higher up in the electromagnetic frequency it gets. They're all just photons. So I want to find for you here. Well, we'll just go in order. We all know what a LAN is. That's what you have at your house, a LAN, right? You go to the office, you got a LAN there. You have a public LAN. That's like the internet that we all use, the intranet. That's an internal-based network, an intranet. GPRS, cellular packet data, mobile IP, subnetworks. So now we're into the wireless realm. All of these things are applicable with respect to being able to transmit quantum encryption keys over the internet. So our internet, as we understand it, also is able to facilitate quantum communications. That's really the underlying premise here. Kind of a big deal. So it talks about having a radio frequency link, RF link to satellites. Satellites may then, based on the instructions received from a key management system, begin distributing encryption key symbols to selected ones of network nodes. For example, through free space links using quantum cryptographic techniques. So they can send quantum information wirelessly over the internet, which means that there's likely quantum communications going on over like cell phone networks, just as well as there are from satellites, because fundamentally the physics there are the same. It's just that the broadcast is from space rather than from some tower in your neighborhood. And there's a key component in here that I found. I've read this thing once, and so bear with me here. I think it's right here. It says here, free space quantum transmitters. So that's a real fancy way of saying this is a wireless transmitter. It could be your Wi-Fi router. It could be a cell phone tower. It could be an over-the-air broadcast television tower, AM/FM radio tower, a satellite tower. It could be a point-to-point wireless system. Free space quantum transmitter is just a radio antenna. It's really all it is. May include components for distributing encryption key symbols via a free space link, right, over the air, right, through the air, or in a vacuum, because that's what we're allegedly told space is, right, in a vacuum. So free space link, meaning it's not encased or enclosed within a cable, a fiber optic cable in the examples they provide here. In one implementation, free space quantum transmitters, just radio transmitters, may distribute encryption key symbols by encoding each encryption key symbol value into the phase, polarization, or energy state of the transmitted photon. What does that mean? Well, when we look at how wireless communications are sent, they use phase, polarization, amplitude, and frequency to send ones and zeros from point A to point B. So what this is telling me as I read this is that using specific phase, polarization, frequencies, amplitudes, they are able to encrypt quantum key symbols in the transmission of wireless communications. So what is that? How does that translate into the real world? That means while you're streaming YouTube, they could literally be using that wireless link and encode or embed quantum key distribution information over that wireless link and use your phone as a hop to send those keys to somebody else or something else that you might be in the middle of the network on. Now, why would they do that? The simple answer is because your phone provides a power source and a link that's not necessarily on the network. And it might be the most direct way to get a distributed quantum key to some other device for some type of communication. So from a surveillance perspective, it'd be very useful to be able to bunny hop around on everybody's devices using the wireless links that they use for YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, email, phone calls, to distribute ongoing, constantly changing quantum encryption keys. And it doesn't all have to come from the satellite network or the cell network. It can be timed from the satellite network and the cell network. It can be timed that way because everything has a clock in it so that the signals line up so that you have a good quality of service. If you didn't have a good clock in your phone or your tablet or your computer, when you're streaming something like YouTube, you wouldn't get a nice, clean, seamless stream. You wouldn't get a clean video. It would be jumbled up. It wouldn't make sense. It would crash. Case in point would be a few years ago, like about a decade, when you were driving down the road on a cell phone on the freeway, how often did your calls drop? And I ask you, how often do they drop now? It has everything to do with the timing and the handoffs from cell tower to cell tower with your phone while you're driving 60 miles an hour down the road. The cell tower has to track your phone. So if you're streaming YouTube in the car, you think about the mechanics of how that works. There is an electromagnetic beam that is focused on that car that is providing you with a signal that gives you the streaming experience that you're having. And the handoffs from one tower to the next are much better than they are right now. So back to this whole quantum encryption distribution network, they can use the communications to and from your devices to send information around a community, a state, a country, the world. And a good example of that would be blockchain type technology, where they use device to device communication over a blockchain network to send encrypted one-time only type information from device to device. It doesn't even have to use the cell network. It may jump on the cell network, but all it needs is the right clock timing so that it understands when it can send information and what device is available to make sure that the timestamps, if you will, still are maintained. And that's one way of tracking it. So going back to this patent here, it says here that crazy. It says here, free space quantum transmitters may include a quantum source, a quantum modulator, an optional quantum beam, directional control unit. Quantum source may emit quantum particles, such as, for example, photons. In one implementation, a quantum source may include a photon source, such as, for example, a laser. Well, microwaves do the same thing. So a quantum source could literally just be antennas. Doesn't matter where the antennas are. It's whether or not it talks on a quantum network. And that's where 5G comes into play. Because with 5G, they are standardizing the network topologies. Right now, you have multiple layers of technology. As new technology comes online, it's designed to be forwards and backwards compatible with the older technology. Well, the jump with 5G, it's going to have backwards compatibility, but it's going to really push for an entirely new platform that standardizes the internet from the top down, from the satellites all the way down to your phone, all the way down to nano networks that potentially are going to reside in medical implanted devices in your body. We'll all have the same internet, general internet platform, TCP, IP being a major standard, as well as Ethernet. Those are terms I think everybody generally understands. They are literally going to be running Ethernet networks over the satellites. And the new connections to large businesses, mid-sized businesses and small businesses are going to be Ethernet based rather than be DSL based or IP DSL based or VDSL based. They are going to be Ethernet as far out as they can, as close to the end user devices as possible. And so as we migrate to these newer upgraded networks, Ethernet's going to get pushed further and further out. And that ties in to the White Rabbit switches made by CERN that ultimately set the atomic clock timing over Ethernet networks that's forwards and backwards compatible with Ethernet. And it's good beyond nanosecond timing. And when we're dealing in the quantum fields, nanosecond and picosecond timing are important because timing is everything in the quantum encryption world. And so it says here that one implementation, a satellite, may include a free space quantum transmitter, so just the radio antennas that beam down satellite energy onto land or across to another satellite, with each being capable of being independently directed. So steerable phased array antennas being able to steer and direct focused energy to provide a beam of quantum particles to different ones of nodes. So they make it sound all quantum particles. It's just photons, but it's photons that are modulated in such a way that they allow for quantum encryption to take place. It says, I want to find where they talk about intercept, because they literally talk about being able to intercept when interception occurs. I think I remember a key term. Nope. Let's see if, okay. It says here no, we already read this. I'm still looking.
Hey TMC, how you doing tonight?
What's up, buddy? I thought I heard you in the background.
I was waiting. I was like, oh.
What do you got, man?
Out over the computer's names.
Alice and Bob. Yeah, they're standard when they talk quantum, man. They use Alice and Bob as pretty standard. Here we go. I think I found something that I want to. So what? Tell me what excited you about hearing Alice and Bob?
Well, Eve, you know who Eve is in biblical terms.
Yeah.
But since I had figured out A, B, C, and D, I didn't know what E was, so I pumped an E. And the interesting thing is when you do a search about these AIs,
Yeah.
they list them as all fictional characters, which is horse crap, if you ask me, because they've obviously named all these, and they just, and I've actually got the list now, and Wikipedia can't take it from me because I copied and pasted it. So I still believe knowing who you're battling is a prevalent idea. Anyway, I'm you got me all ears on this cool. Satellite stuff. It's real interesting.
Yeah, this is well, when you know that Elon Musk is throwing up a minimum of 11,000 of these things, and that's just his company. Europe and Richard Branson are throwing up their own constellations. China's throwing up their own 5G constellations. India's throwing up constellations. Russia's throwing up constellations. I'm sure Israel's throwing up constellations. And I'm sure there are others that are throwing up constellations, and they're all going to interoperate with each other. This is where we're going, because at some point it's going to be, and I found these patents. I need to dig them up again. I didn't write them down. They're somewhere in my tabs, where they talk about quantum. No, they talk about satellite communication directly to cell phones with 5G for areas that don't have cell towers, and it's limited connectivity. And so it's not a sat phone. It's different than that. It's literally cell service, but it's done with the 5G satellite, whereby the 5G satellite is able to send information to your phone and then read the electromagnetic field around your phone as your phone transmits a response. And from the emitted field from the phone, it's able to see a change in the electromagnetic field that's beaming down on the phone, and is able to then convert that into a receive signal at the satellite. So the satellite's transmitting information to the phone, and it's also transmitting electromagnetic beams down as sensors to pick up the electromagnetic radiation that's coming off of the phone based on the response signal, the phone trying to communicate back. And from the changes that are made in the electromagnetic field, that's the sensor field from the satellite, it's able to understand what the phone's trying to say. And the bandwidth requirements, or the bandwidth availability in a remote area like that, would be equivalent for a grainy kind of phone call or text messages or basic text email. It's not going to be like high speed. It's not going to be like high speed connectivity at all. What it does provide is emergency services with something as basic as a $300 cell phone that's 5G compatible. So in 2 to 4 years, if you go hiking in the mountains, or you're out in the middle of the lake, or you go into the desert, or you go somewhere where there's not towers around that are providing you regular cell service, you still get 911, is basically how I think that's going to be rolled out. And I've got those patents somewhere. I read that and I was blown away.
Yeah, and I've got all these little birdies. A little birdie was telling me basically that the information can be stored in every living cell. So, like, they can put the information in different places, and it just sits there.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because we're gonna move into a DNA resonance patent here in a minute, and it talks about being able to identify specific genes inside of DNA based on its resonant characteristics.
And the little birdie might be listening.
Oh, sounds like it.
Because I think we've talked about him before, but he's the one that showed me to the show in the first place. But I also sent to you the SpaceX deploys those mini little satellites for Elon Musk. You know what I'm talking about?
I forgot the name of them. They're little sub satellites.
Yeah, I posted that in your Discord. You might want to play that. I think it's really interesting because they're like a black and white box.
Heck yeah,
and they've got like a little eye in the center, and it's like, that's so strange. But I just sent that to you. And then the other thing that got me thinking on this whole document was back to Eve for a second. If you look up Eve, it also shows you that there's a computer named Eve. It was like a launch of a Microsoft computer, I believe. Mm-hmm. But it got me thinking, the way they're describing Eve as a listener in between the quantum fields, what if they did a similar thing from what you were just describing, as Eve as an intelligence sorted in many computers over a vast array, looking to do her business as an artificial intelligence already encrypted into the backlogs of people's computers, and that specific model probably.
Yeah. So it's who has the quantum high ground is the way I'm understanding what you're postulating there.
A hidden AI that's already put inside certain computers. Because they could take a section of your hard drive and deem it as unusable, and then hide that 1% or even a 0.0001%, 5%, or like not a 5%, like a 0.5%. Like we're talking like 0.000% or something, right? Or hundreds of thousands of a percent. But they hide it in so many, and then it adds up to the artificial intelligence of a massive supercomputer.
Right. And that's there's a term for that. And universities use that technique you can donate your computer, a part of your computer processor to a larger network. I think it's BitTorrent, type of BitTorrent, where they basically use a piece of everybody's computer processor to create giant supercomputer type processing capabilities. But you're saying this kind of stuff could be done in the background. I have to agree.
People unsuspecting.
Well, yeah. Well, if you cornered the market like Apple, and you had 50% of all mobile devices deployed globally, why wouldn't you? You literally have the ability to, using free energy. To you, it's free energy because other people are paying to charge their phones. Other people are paying for the cell networks and the Wi-Fi networks by which the phones are connected, to then run in the background because they have auto connection type features to understand and make sure that the channel states are what they need to be to run the apps. And so everything doesn't crash, and they are able to ping and allow for, diagnostics to go back, whether you consent to it or not. So through those back doors, if you will, you could totally do exactly what you're saying. Have a little piece of everybody's device and collectively distribute computation functions over the entire array of devices that you've produced or manufactured and have now been deployed through consumer markets, to then utilize in real time a little piece of everybody's processor in their mobile device to do whatever it is you wanted to do. And it wouldn't be just strictly for computation. That could be for, a secondary, tertiary type of a connection where it's a whole nother behind the scenes network that's enabled. And so, going back to this patent, to your point, who has the quantum high ground? If a field already exists and then quantum communications occur in that field, do those quantum communications disturb that field? And because the quantum communications were generated in that field, can you observe the change without disrupting the communication, whereby because the quantum communication was originated in an existing surveillance field, there wouldn't be a disruption. The creation and transmission of the information is a disruption to the field, but it would be a normal action or iteration as the quantum information was being sent. And that's the real, that's the question I have at this point. If you were to have a blanket of surveillance fields, wireless fields over everything, and you had that cyber supremacy, if quantum communications were being used and they were being used in that field that was already there before the quantum communications were sent, would it disrupt the quantum communications, or would the quantum communications have to be created in that field whereby it's part of its normal environment? It wouldn't be abnormal. So the field disturbance, when the quantum communication is actually generated and sent, can then be a point of measurement as an omnipotent type of a point of measurement. It's not a direct measurement of the quantum information, so it doesn't really destroy it. And that's way beyond my scope of understanding of quantum mechanics, but damn, if that's possible, we're just, whoa. So we'll look at this last part, and then I think we'll move to DNA, because we're like a half hour in on this. So the values of the quantum key distribution symbols, a high or a low symbol value, may be interpreted by the polarization, phase, or energy states of incoming photons. The polarization, phase, or energy state of each received photon may be measured and interpreted to identify a symbol value for each received photon. So what does this mean? If you want to send wireless communication, or if you want to send optical communication over fiber optics, every single pulse is a photon or a series of photons that have unique characteristics. And what this is basically saying is that they can understand with great specificity what those characteristics are and use that for quantum key distribution and, by extension, quantum information exchange. So anyway, I'm gonna continue learning about this, and I'll share more of it as time goes on. But to me, this is really what the new networks are about. When we look at 5G and we look at the satellites and this, that, and the other, it's quantum. And we look at cyber and cyber command and cyber supremacy, it literally is in the quantum field. And when we start looking at nanotechnology, those energy transfers in the nano scale occur in the quantum, or occur with quantum mechanics, quantum physics. So you look at nanotech, and it exchanges information, reads information, understands information in the quantum realm. So that's why this is important to me. That's why I look at this stuff and go, whoa, this is kind of a big deal, because they're constructing nano networks that are going to be universally connected from a nano network all the way up to a satellite global network or an interplanetary network, all basically run with, at a minimum, what I see here, quantum cryptographic key distribution. So can you imagine having your body or your device that's near your body all the time being part of a quantum network? Do you have access to that quantum network, or is it just something that's going to be there because you happen to have a device or maybe something in your body? And if that's the case, where's the accountability? Especially because when you disrupt a quantum communication, it goes away. The information is destroyed. So how do you track it? Which took me naturally to that. What if you have this general surveillance field that already exists, and then the quantum information is sent? That surveillance field, I think, would maintain itself. It wouldn't disrupt the communications, but you still understand to some extent what they were. Super advanced surveillance techniques, if it's true. I don't know. I'm hypothesizing here. So let's move on. This patent right here. And then, you know what? Before we do that, I want to show you this, and then I'll go over to Discord. I forgot about that video that you said you sent me. Check this thing out.
It wouldn't be very long. I think it's only like a 30-second or 40-second thing.
We'll watch this one, and then I'll jump over and grab that real quick. This is quantum teleportation.
I'm Brian Greene, professor of physics and mathematics at Columbia University and co-founder of the World Science Festival. Teleportation is one of the weird ideas, and there is a version of it that physicists now routinely make use of. Nobody is teleporting people from place to place, but we can teleport individual particles. We can take a particle at one location and in some sense create an absolute identical version of it. Exactly the same properties, exactly the same quantum state, if you let me be a little technical. And that means, in essence, you've gone from a particle that was here to one over here. And in fact, the process itself destroys the particle over here. So the only version of this particle that exists when this process is over is the one that's been created at this location. And people do this. There's very, very smart physicist, Anton Zeilinger. He routinely teleports particles from Tenerife to La Palma. It's an amazing thing that you can actually do this. The big question, of course, is, will you ever teleport big things like people? And the procedures that are used for individual particles simply do not scale. You cannot simply scale them up to do more and more particles, I don't think. But who knows, 500, 1,000 years from now, maybe we'll have something on the table that we can try out. If it happens in our lifetime, I can tell you one thing for certain. I will not be the first person who goes into that device.
All right. So I'm going to look in Discord. There was a question out there. Could that be done on phones, or does it have to be a processor? Huvian Anon. I'm going to pull up a document real quick that may help answer that question.
I'd take a crack at that one.
Yeah, please, because we're gonna look.
Well,
at this
it would only make sense that the architecture of a quad-core phone, or even greater, would be able to do the same thing as a processor that's a few years old, 10 years old or something on a regular computer. If you look at the price point, it should tell you, if you pay $1,500 for a phone and you pay $1,200 for a computer, even though the phone is smaller and not as, in that same year, as strong as, strong or operating faster, or, whatever you want to rate the processor as, I would reckon that it's real close.
Yeah, it can be done, and it can be done, I think, in the processor. It can also be done in the other sensors. And so when we look at advanced ways of interacting with devices, it's with things like this: quantum acoustics with surface acoustic waves. This is just one way that this can be done. And it says here, it is recently demonstrated that surface acoustic waves can interact with superconducting qubits at the quantum level. Surface acoustic wave resonators in the gigahertz frequency range have also been found to have low loss at temperatures compatible with superconducting quantum circuits. These advances open up new possibilities to use the phonon, which is just the acoustic wave version of a photon, which is a planar wave instead of a longitudinal wave. Use the phonon degree of freedom to carry quantum information. So what this is saying is that they are able to carry quantum information using acoustic waves that basically ride on top of surfaces. So what that means is that they can resonate devices, and with unique resonances encrypt and or transmit quantum information over those unique resonant characteristics. So when you look at integrated circuits, and the example you provided, Paul, like a phone that costs that much money, there are circuits in those phones that they do more than one thing. They're tied into everything, and they have complex solid state switches, basically, that through the processor and software, it tell or provide instruction to these circuits what to energize and when, and what to look for and what to sense and what to read. And they use the same circuit paths. So a lot of the sensors and whatnot that are in the phone are hooked up to these flexible type circuits that could theoretically, I'm not saying it's true, theoretically be used or energized when those specific components in the device are resonated in a certain kind of a way. So they can get them to resonate and then perhaps turn them off, turn them on, turn them off, turn them on in a certain sequence that then activates a certain amount of voltage with the right types of pulsing and or modulation, which then provides communication to the phone in a covert manner. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, the chatter Edge EW Thomp said, "Is it a wave or is it a particle?" And I think the wave transposes the information of the particle to the other side, and then that it's like riding the wave. You could say information wave, but it's the quantum wave. But riding that quantum wave informationally, and then the particle is the information of that particle is resurrected on the other side. Thank you.
A photon, they say a photon is both. It's a particle and a wave. But then there are people that dismiss that who claim to know a lot about quantum. They say that that's wrong. I don't have enough knowledge one way or another to really be able to give you an opinion other than what I've read. The common literature out there indicates that a photon is a particle and a wave, and that a phonon is basically just energy that's being transmitted through particles that are in place.
I can't tell you how I know. Sure. I just know. You were with me on this, right, TMC?
Yeah, it's something I want to learn a lot more about, because this is where we're going. And honestly, I think that quantum mechanics should be introduced to children in a very rudimentary way in like junior high. And then for the smart children in high school, get them involved in, 101 level quantum mechanics before they even get to college. But we're moving in the wrong direction as it relates to that. So anyway,
we're still worried about which bathroom to use, right?
Right. It says here, with the development of radar in the mid-20th century, a need arose for advanced processing of radio frequency and microwave signals. Important class of components created to fill this need is based on surface acoustic waves, mechanical ripples that propagate across the face of a solid. When surface acoustic waves are used for signal processing, the surface of a microchip is used as a medium of propagation. An electrical RF signal is converted into an acoustic wave, processed acoustically, and then converted back into the electrical domain. The substrate is almost universally piezoelectric. So what they're really saying here is, in order to get phased array to work properly, they use the acoustic waves because they actually travel slower than light, than electromagnetic waves. So in order to get a phased array radar to work properly, they literally convert the energy into acoustic waves and then use the acoustic waves, which travel slower than the radio frequency waves. They use those to time when each antenna element fires. And so anyway, we're not going to get into the guts of this paper, but
one quick thing is they mentioned piezoelectric, right?
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is, if you look up the Pizio family from ancient Rome, you'll figure a lot of stuff out. There's a philosopher he wrote sections of the Bible and different things, i.e. Diehold Foundation. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I've never gone down that trail. It sounds interesting.
Yeah. Someone in chat mentioned Satan, and basically it's saying that Satan didn't exist because Piso was the one that invented Satan, and that it was just a thought in his head, and he put it out in the paperwork. So it's just it's a philosophical debate / religious debate, but I won't go any further.
Cool.
You could look at it yourself.
Yeah, I wrote down Piezo family and then Rome. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. That'll get me going in the right direction. They give some examples here. Gallium arsenide keeps popping up in the stuff I'm looking at with satellites and microelectronics and what they say here is piezoelectric materials, gallium arsenide. So, and some of these things,
piezoelectric crystals.
Some of these things create the mechanoluminescent nanoparticles that I shared. I don't know. It's probably been a month or so ago, where they are able to convert ultrasound into light emitting, or they use ultrasound to energize mechanoluminescent nanoparticles to emit light, and they can float that stuff around your body. Anyway, let's go to this DNA resonance patent, and we'll look at that real quick. Oh, hold on. To SpaceX. Let's watch this thing deploy here real quick. I forgot about this. So what was this, Paul? You said this was a Starlink deployment of a cube.
Yeah, these are actually the little satellites that are those Starlinks. So that's what my understanding of them is. And you can see 2 or 3 of them released. And they look like white and black boxes with a real weird circular hole in the center. Mm-hmm. And I just could hardly imagine that's a satellite, but have a look.
All right.
Should be hearing a call out for the first SkySat shortly.
SkySat 1 separation confirmed.
And there's that confirmation that first SkySat has deployed. Now these 3 SkySats, and it looks like we can actually see there's that first SkySat satellite. Pretty awesome view. We should hear a call out for the second one here shortly. They're deploying in about 30-second increments here.
SkySat 2 separation confirmed.
And there's the confirmation for the second SkySat. And since we saw the first one, I think we should be able to see that second one shortly here as well. And there you can see it. Very cool views today. Now we just are waiting for that third and final SkySat here shortly.
SkySat 3 separation confirmed.
And there's confirmation of separation of that final SkySat. These 3 SkySats will be joining 15 already in orbit, and 3 more will be deploying on a separate Starlink mission later this summer, completing their fleet of 21 SkySats.
Crazy. So, yeah, it looks like the imagery that they used, Paul, wasn't regular camera. It was something else.
Well, yeah, and the interesting thing is they might actually fold out. I'm not probably sure that that's the total span of what they look like, but I thought it was kind of interesting anyway.
Yeah, I agree. They don't. It's hard to get a good idea of what size they are. You know what I mean? But I do remember, I think the term I'm looking for, they have microsats and maybe picosats where they launch these satellites, and then out of these satellites come little smaller node satellites where like 3 or 4 of them are stored inside of a larger satellite, and they become part of the network. I'm sure they don't have as many capabilities, but they're probably just a way to extend how things are hopped and how traffic is managed.
Another little birdie that sent me that. He sent me a few more. If anyone's interested, I'll post them up.
Might as well, man. All right, let's dig into this one, because this kind of ties into our discussion we were having on Wednesday on Hyperdrive about DNA. And we went all over the place with DNA. And so I found this patent a while ago, lost it, meaning it wasn't on the radar, and then found it again. And so basically what this says is that this is a patent for readily and efficiently determining resonant frequencies that can be used therapeutically or beneficially for debilitation of specific types of genomic material, genetic material, including DNA and or RNA, genes, and gene sections. The methods can be used in a variety of circumstances related to various human and animal diseases and conditions. These methods allow determination of therapeutic resonant frequencies for use in various media and have different refractivities. Therapeutic or beneficial resonant frequencies thus determined are adapted for use with currently available frequency emitting devices by shifting the resonant frequencies to electromagnetic ranges capable of generation by such devices. So what does that mean? That means that even though your DNA resonates in the infrared generally and the terahertz range, they just use what they call a subharmonic, and they can resonate your DNA down at like 500 hertz, 300 hertz, and anywhere in between 300 hertz up through into gigahertz and terahertz, which means that we have systems around us right now that, if modulated properly, could potentially be doing things like reading our DNA. That's what I'm getting out of this patent. But let's go through it and you be the judge for yourself.
I agree with you on that last video. That the footage is a little fuzzy, isn't it? And for such a good thing that people would want to see, it doesn't make sense that the footage is so unclear.
Right. It's like they intentionally lensed it with something. And I would imagine, for good reason, you would not want high definition images of these satellites because they're likely full of proprietary information, potentially classified information. So,
yeah, I agree. And then the next sort of thing that I was think it's a bit unfair about the topic of this patent, that if you and I went to use any of this stuff that to heal people, we'd be thrown in jail. But yet they're way out in the open with saying, hey, we can heal you. We can do all this great miraculous stuff with all these different therapeutical things and with all these different medicines. And then, oh, no, you guys can't use any of that stuff because if you do, it's illegal. It's pseudoscience. And all of a sudden now it's pseudomedicine. And so I think that's real BS too. Pisses me off.
Yeah, it's from what I've been able to understand in a general sense, looking at stuff I've looked at, mostly electromagnetic, but also I'm seeing the same things with sound and light. Everything that can be done medically can be done better with directed energy, with focused energy. It could be more lethal or it could be more healing than the methods of medicine that we understand in a general sense. It's ridiculous what they can do with this stuff. For example, it says here, resonant frequency therapy is a non-invasive treatment that has been reported to offer significant relief to sufferers of a variety of ailments and medical conditions. The use of radiofrequency therapy for human and animal therapeutic purposes began in the early 1900s and experienced accelerated development through the research of Royal Rife and his associates in the 1930s and afterwards. So the Rife machines, for those of you that don't know what they are, those were just, I believe they were acoustic resonance machines that delivered very, very sophisticated, for their time, very sophisticated modulations into the body to get the right resonance to occur in the body that actually offered healing therapy, legitimate therapy. It says, using new microscope technology he developed, Rife discovered that plasma waves, there it is, could be used to transmit radio and audio frequencies, which were tuned to the frequencies of specific microorganisms, and that each microorganism responded to its own unique frequencies. For example, Rife found that Staphylococcus, Streptococcus, microorganisms associated with tuberculosis, typhoid, leprosy, as well as cancer, and other disease-causing agents succumbed, meaning they went away, they were ameliorated, they were destroyed when exposed to certain frequencies peculiar to each organism or particle. And this was back in a report 1944. 1944.
Nothing to see there.
No, just the Rockefeller medical establishment overtaking the colleges and then throwing away or dismissing anything other than petroleum-based, pharmaceutically based forms of medicine.
Oh, you can't say that, TMC. You just crossed the line.
Oh my gosh, the channel's going to go down.
You're going to have to go hide.
So it says here, using these principles of Rice's discoveries, various researchers developed devices for emitting frequencies designed to treat a range of diseases and conditions. For example, Dr. Abraham Ginsburg used an apparatus which produced intermittent bursts of high energy in the shortwave spectrum. Ginsburg's modality was found to stimulate the reticuloendothelial system, got to look that up, without undesirably heating tissue. Using his device, Ginsburg reported successfully treating patients with various clinical conditions, including chronic staphylococcus infections. You mean like the stuff they can't get rid of in hospitals today? Acute inflammatory middle ear, chronic ulcerative colitis. Oh, you mean like the gut problems that everybody has nowadays? Bronchitis, rheumatoid arthritis, gout, flu, and thrombophlebitis. Don't even ask me what that is, among others. This was in 1959. 1959. Research utilizing resonant frequencies and therapeutic modalities implementing such frequencies have proliferated over the past 10 years. A recent example of use of resonant frequency therapy is the Christchurch Resonant Frequency Therapy Center in Dunedin, New Zealand, of course. While the center emphasizes that resonant frequency therapy is not intended to replace treatment regimens and medication prescribed by physicians, it does report successful treatment of a range of clinical conditions, including arthritis, tinnitus, blood pressure, cataracts, headaches, shingles, and psoriasis. Arthritis patients report particular success with pain reduction and greater mobility. And this was published in 1999. The use of audio, radio, and light waves to inhibit microbial growth and to treat diseases and affect tissues is well known. Effective therapeutic resonant frequencies have been used through various means. Trial and error approaches with resonant frequencies have been used to obtain therapeutic responses. It's all been cataloged. Devices for applying. What's up?
And this was what Trump was talking about: therapeutical light waves put into the bloodstream.
Yeah, one example. I'm sure that there are many hundreds, if not thousands, of techniques using light, sound, and electromagnetic waves for therapy.
Yeah, and it's basically saying microbial, which if you scroll down a bit, it says bacterial, viral, and tissue samples.
There you go. I was going to say you can't leave out the virus, buddy. Yeah.
Hello cures for QV19 or CV19.
Exactly. So the use of audio, radio, and light waves inhibit microbial growth and treat diseases and affected tissues is well known. Effective therapeutic resonant frequencies have been identified through various means, trial and error. Devices for applying electromagnetic energy to living tissues are disclosed in these other patents they list here. And it's very interesting to see the various apparatuses that they make. Because they really, if the patents work as advertised, holy hell, if they're released to the public and made part of general therapy techniques, pharmaceuticals are dead. And that's why I think everybody's moving into electroceuticals at this point, is because these things are coming out and they are going to be allowed to be deployed and used as effective therapies, which is going to displace the pharmaceutical market. And so that's the push for electroceuticals. And it all ties in with 5G and blah, blah, blah. But that's not the scope of the discussion today. We still need to get down to the resonance of DNA. Effective resonant frequencies have also been identified through the use of frequency scanning with electronic devices capable of detecting a frequency response from a bacterial, viral, and/or tissue sample. Whoa. Devices for detecting frequency responses are disclosed in these other patents. Now, I want you to remember, those of you that listen to Big Tech, Google now has a radar chip that goes in their devices that can image various components of the body into and through tissue, bone, cartilage, blood, gaseous content, all of it, down to a millimeter scale. So when we look at frequency scanning with electronic devices capable of detecting a frequency response from bacterial, viral, and/or tissue sample, the question then becomes, is the Google Soli radar chip one of many that are coming online right now? That's just one of many. Are those sensitive enough to go through a frequency spectrum scan and determine unique resonant characteristics off of a patch of your skin and determine whether or not you have staph or MRSA or fecal matter for that matter? But that's no matter. Let's continue. Thus, there exists a need for more efficient and accurate methodology than trial and error to determine therapeutic resonant frequencies for specific targets, such as microorganisms. So it says here that the efficacy of frequencies, right, whether for stimulation or debilitation, so to excite or to suppress or stunt, depends to some extent on the type of frequency delivery system used, including variables such as power levels, waveform, harmonic content of the wave, and other factors. Now let's break that down, because that people are like, what is that? Frequency delivery system used. Is it light? Is it sound? Is it electromagnetics? Is it antennas? Is it a speaker? Or is it a laser? If it's any one of those things, is it a specific subset of those frequency bands? That's what they're talking about there. Does it have variable power? Does the laser have an ability to get stronger or weaker? Does the volume level go up or down on the speaker with the frequencies that it's emitting? Do the antennas for emitting electromagnetic energy, are they able to power up or power down? And the answer to all of those things is yes. Absolutely. Harmonic content of the wave. That simply means I'm going to send out a frequency and I'm going to simultaneously send out a harmonic of that frequency, whether it be a second harmonic, third harmonic, fourth harmonic, fifth harmonic, and they will get into that a little bit later on in this patent. And the answer to this question, do the antennas and or speakers and or lasers, can they do that? And today, yes, the answer is yes. What you got, buddy?
Oh, I just love that you're taking this on as your charge, and then reading down below, I'm just like waiting for you to read the next sentence where it says increase efficacy, and I'm like, yes, harmonization increases in efficacy, and I'm like, yes, that's what we're talking about. Yeah,
and that's what they get at here is it doesn't really matter what the harmonic is. It could be a harmonic or a subharmonic, and it still provides therapy. It's just a matter of how effective it is, meaning that more time needs to be applied or more power needs to be applied with the subharmonic rather than getting its native harmonic. And what they also found was that if they use the resonant harmonic, or they use the resonant frequency and a subharmonic or a harmonic, meaning above the resonant frequency, if they use one or more in the general family of harmonics, whether it be a harmonic or a subharmonic, above or below the native resonant frequency, it's way more effective. So it's useful to be able to send out more than one frequency and tune those frequencies to be within either a subharmonic or a harmonic of the resonant frequency of whatever it is you're trying to vibrate. An organ, a bone, bacteria. Yeah.
Wait till you catch this. Using the magnetic frequency of the Earth, the Schumann resonance, using that frequency to attach the healing frequencies to it to heal everyone at once. Bam, boom, drop. That's what I'm talking about.
That kind of makes a lot of sense, dude. Because you could find a resonant frequency to the power of like 64. And it would still be a resonant frequency of the Schumann resonance.
Yeah, and attach it to the multiple waves of magnetic Schumann.
Yeah, you could run that over the television broadcast or the AM/FM broadcast or cell tower broadcast or satellites. And as long as it's a resonant harmonic to the power of fill in the blank, you could be up in the hundreds for that matter. You could literally get into the gigahertz and still have the right harmonics. And the question then is, what's the sophistication of it? Meaning, how many places past the decimal point are we going? And therein lies the difference, because I think people will resonate just slightly differently. So there has to be a balance between how far past the decimal point you go to get the maximum effect. But that's just me speculating. Damn, dude, that was profound. I didn't put that together. So thanks for that. So once therapeutic resonant frequencies are determined, the user must choose which devices and delivery system are most effectively used in conjunction. So increased efficacy, easier, quicker, more accurate way of determining therapeutic resonant frequencies is needed. So that's that scanning piece, right? Despite both historical and increasing recent interest in the use of resonant frequency therapy mechanisms of action, underlying the use of known therapeutic resonant frequencies is not fully understood. While it's recognized that some types of resonance phenomenon debilitates or destroys microorganisms, the biophysical and or biochemical mechanisms associated with the use of specific resonant frequencies and that lead to microbial inhibition are not completely known. So this is still an ongoing field of study, so they say, at the time of this writing. Before now, there has never existed a methodology that links effective therapeutic resonant frequencies to a biophysical or biochemical event, process, or structure. The electronic scanning devices and methods currently commercially available provide no explanation or insight regarding which physical structure or process is influenced by the frequencies used.
And another quick thing, I see someone's comment, tallest symbol of freedom, he says, has Q posted music? Why, yes, Q has posted music. And fortunately enough for us, if we listen to it, who knows what might actually transcend out of that.
Yep, I'm generally skeptical. I mean, I'm not looking at listening to the music over and over again for a therapeutic effect because it was posted in the queue, personally. The reason why is because it's on a platform like YouTube, and how hard is it to re-encode something, especially after it drops on the queue? So to think that that's being to think that that's a delivery mechanism for some mechanical method of a greater type of awakening, I personally don't subscribe to that, but that's just me.
I don't disagree with the fact that I've had thought processes of some of that being altered. So yeah, no, I'm just saying that that's definitely a possibility. I
think that the music, the choice of music that are put forth out there are manyfold. They mean more than just, hey, listen to this cool song, but they're nonetheless, I think they're good genres to expose a lot of people to potentially get them away from some of the other toxic music that's out there, like, grotesque, vulgar gangster rap. There's nothing wrong with rap music. I grew up on rap music personally. I love rap music. But the older I get, the stuff I listen to or listened to, I listen to it now and I don't like it as much because I listen to the lyrics and it's not something I want to fill my brain with. And so to that point, having those suggestions through the queue, I think provide a lot of people with an opportunity to maybe expand into musical genres that they would otherwise not have come across. And that in and of itself is healing.
Yeah.
Because then you're go ahead.
I threw a slow ball, soft pitch softball to you.
Yeah. That way, I don't know. I think the idea overall is to get people to figure out what works for them and how to help themselves, and by doing so, helping others. But you can't help others effectively if you aren't in a good place yourself. So, to me, that's what the multiple meanings are. It's their suggestions with respect to the music, because that's what you brought up. There are suggestions to hopefully incentivize people, or at least expose people to music that will fill them with something other than negativity, regardless of how it's recorded or modulated over YouTube. Because you could find that stuff. I think the idea there would be to find that stuff and look for those artists and or those genres of music on whatever other platforms that you use, whether it be, whatever, Pandora, Sirius, Spotify, it doesn't matter. But it's just to get people to be exposed to these to variations in music besides what's being put out there in mainstream. Because quite frankly, music is powerful stuff, man. Powerful stuff. I listen to music a lot, and I listen to it while I research, and I'm not going to lie, it has a profound impact on the way I absorb information. It has a profound impact on the way I process my thoughts, and that says a lot about what are you feeding your brain. And there's a lot going on with music, beat, tempo, lyrics, all of it, and whatever subliminals they put into it. So let's get into what this patent actually talks about. And it says this invention is a method for determining resonant frequencies having therapeutic effect or uses in a variety of settings. It provides methods for efficiently and accurately determining therapeutic resonant frequencies for complete genomes and partial genomic materials, and for use in various media having different refractivities. What does that mean? That means it's a difference in your skin, it's a difference in your bone, it's a difference in your muscles, it's a difference in the type of muscles, it's a difference in your veins versus your arteries versus your nerves versus your blood versus the different organs versus your lymph versus your cartilage, or any combination thereof as the energy transmits through specific parts of your body. That's what it's talking about with respect to a biological. Large biological. And if you want to drill down even further, getting into the bacteria, viruses, and on, what do those things do when they're in the body? Because the energy has to pass through these various tissues, these various substrates, before it gets to the organism of interest, and then still has to resonate. So there has to be a system that's able to compensate for the way that the energy is transformed or misshapen as it passes through various mediums before it gets to the item of interest, in this case, potentially DNA or virus or bacteria or something like that. So there has to be compensation as it transmits through an object based on what the object is made of. So that's what they're basically saying in that first paragraph. Methods of the present invention utilize biophysical and biochemical properties of genomic materials to determine therapeutic resonant frequencies. For example, the length of any object can be considered as having a resonant frequency by virtue of the correlation of the wavelength that manifests itself into the surrounding medium, blah, 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 blah. Which means that if your DNA is one length and another section of DNA is a different length, it's going to have a different resonant frequency because of the size. Size, in this case, matters. On that basis, the length of a biomolecular chain or chains of DNA and RNA can be calculated. They can calculate the biomolecular chains of DNA and RNA, and thus can provide wavelength matching information unique to specific strands of genomic material. Wait a minute. Based on the information I'm reading here, they would know that if they sent a specific energy resonant energy into your body, making the accommodations for your composition, how you're uniquely made, they would be able to identify specific DNA or RNA chains in your body, maybe like whether or not you've got COVID or any other type of disease. Can you imagine remotely detecting cancer from something like your cell phone? Can you imagine no more swab up the nose for all of you that have been swabbed? No more violating procedures? Can you imagine for a minute that they can literally catalog your DNA, sequence your DNA wirelessly? They don't need to draw blood to map your DNA, to resonate and influence your DNA. Oh, it gets better, folks. They are able to isolate specific genetic expressions in your DNA with this technology. Let's continue. DNA and RNA chains are constructed in such a way that negatively charged molecular ions, the PO4 groups, run the entire length of the molecule on the outer surface of the chain in a helical fashion, causing the molecule to contain a relatively large negative charge on its surface. Thus, the chain is highly electrosensitive to the influences of resonant, oscillating electromagnetic fields. I will say that again in summation. Your DNA, because it is negatively charged, is highly susceptible to resonant, oscillating electromagnetic fields. Resonance is defined as the increase in the amplitude of the natural oscillation or frequency of a system when exposed to a periodic force whose frequency is equal to or very close to the natural frequency of a system. Imagine for a moment the opera singer with the wine glass in the face singing the exact note that resonates with the glass to the tune that when the note is sung for an extended period of time, the glass begins to shimmy and shake and shatters. That is what resonance can do. The natural oscillation of a system or part of a system is defined as its natural resonant frequency. Do you have something?
Not really.
Okay.
Just reading stuff.
Cool, no worries. In radio science, the length of an antenna will largely determine how effectively the antenna responds to a wavelength of energy of an incoming transmission. Methods for determining a therapeutic resonant frequency of the present invention utilize the principle that the length of a DNA or RNA helical chain, the twisted strand, can be electromagnetically resonated in a similar fashion. Methods of the present invention allow for precise correlations between resonant frequencies and the length of the genomic material under consideration. If the resonant frequency is generated in air or a vacuum, while the target material resides in a different medium, like in your body, in this invention's methods, a refractive adjustment, a compensation is made to ensure that the wavelength traveling from the air or the vacuum, open air, radiant antenna, like a cell phone or a cell tower, transforms to the length of the target material in the surrounding medium. By accounting for an appropriate electromagnetic refractive index for the surrounding medium, meaning it knows what the wave is going to do as it passes through your body, and it makes those takes those into considerations and makes those accommodations so that when the wave passes through your body, it is at the right resonant frequency. As it passes through your body, it transforms into the correct resonant frequency of the thing they're trying to resonate. In this case, we're talking about your DNA, or the DNA of some little nasty in your body, like COVID. By accounting for an appropriate electromagnetic refractive index for the surrounding medium, such as water or tissue, methods of the present invention provide the advantage of determining a resonant frequency that would be more closely related to the length of the genomic material and its natural resonant frequency, and would be more appropriate for or therapeutic for the genomic material in that specific medium. And here we go with, go ahead, buddy.
I was going to say something before. I just didn't have it in my mind. But they're talking about, how the destruction of the DNA because of the frequencies. Well, isn't that what we could be seeing with the mass amounts of frequencies trying to distort the natural frequencies? Isn't that what we're basically saying, that the internal parts of this patent is saying that is destructive, those magnetic frequencies are destructive to the DNA itself?
It does say that in this patent. It says that the higher frequency carrier waves can actually be disruptive. And so to get the purest effect, it's better to use the actual frequencies rather than modulating it onto a higher frequency. What do I mean by that? Basic principle called wave interference.
Yeah.
If you have something transmitting at 1 gigahertz, and you have something else transmitting at 1.1 gigahertz, and those transmissions, those waves intersect and they cross over and they interact with each other like throwing rocks in a pond and having the water waves ripple and the ripples interact with each other. Where those waves interact, you get different frequencies that are created. And so what they're saying and what they say in this patent is that if you use higher carrier waves and you intersect those waves to get the resonant frequencies, they actually can be harmful. And that's exactly the system that's being built right now around us. And I can show you the directed energy patents that discuss doing things like what I just explained to you. Wave interference, using directed energy to get a particular unique frequency for resonance to resonate things like electrical circuits to turn off cars.
And to elaborate on that a bit further, can't we use this patent as a legal evidence to prevent some of this?
I don't know. There would need to be more. I think there would need to be more to get a jury and a judge to look at something like this and go, it's undeniable, guilty. That's not going to happen. There's not enough background knowledge for the implications to be so clear.
But what I'm saying is a patent summary like this, right, has to actually prove its case in order to become a patent.
Yes.
Yeah. So what I'm getting at is it's already a legal document, already with legal registration, already with legal approval. Hence, it's kind of like, these things are important. These are TMC's giving a gift to the world right here. Thank you, TMC.
All I'm doing is regurgitating things that have come across my consciousness.
Yeah, because you're exposing it to the light, which is what needs to be done. So that's what your gift was. It's going
on my website. Yeah, man, it's going on this is going to go on my website with a breakdown of it, which will be on the same site that has lots and lots of directed energy platform patents that will then tie into 5G, that will then tie into the open radio antenna networks with public documentations from companies like Huawei. So it'll all, my goal, brother, is to put everything I can in one place that somebody can go to and legitimately spend a month and learn and walk away going, holy shit, in a good way and a bad way. It's not all bad. There's not, we're potentially going to be building systems that are going to offer what we're talking about, therapeutic resonant frequency treatments that literally can be done in the comfort of your own home while you sleep, while you watch movies, while you care for your family, and have it be unique to you and not impact your family at all. Can you imagine mom after C-section or otherwise rapidly healing while baby is being remotely monitored and evaluated and potentially enhanced by stimulating and activating nerves and resonating structures of the brain in baby to rapidly improve their ability to learn as they go through their toddler years, and just do it as a general societal service, knowing full well that they are the future and that because of those types of treatments, they would be exposed, or if they were exposed to something like quantum mechanics in the 8th grade, they would get it like it was fucking Crayola. Pardon my language. That's the kind of stuff that will take us off planet, folks. But the very same technologies could give us all cancer and kill us in a matter of a month. So that's the level of technology the species has, and that's the crossroads in our civilization that we're really talking about here. Never mind the psychological manipulation that's possible with this stuff. But we got to continue because we're not going to get through it if we don't. DNA and RNA appear in the near infrared and visible and near ultraviolet regions of the spectrum. So near infrared, visible, and near ultraviolet regions. So your computer monitor, your television, any special skin type treatment you would get or device you would get from a day spa, or your facial ID lasers would be able to potentially interact with your DNA, potentially. But it gets better because they talk about subharmonics here where they drop it down into the gigahertz and or into the hertz field. Just know that your DNA resonates in the infrared, visible, and near ultraviolet regions of the spectrum. That's the size of your DNA, matching the wavelengths. So for many currently available frequency emitting devices, the natural resonant frequencies, such as those associated with genomes, genomic material, are not achievable due to the technical limitations of the device. Indeed, particular devices often are capable of generating frequencies only in narrow ranges. To overcome such limitations, methods of the present invention adjust resonant frequencies upwards or downwards. Pay attention. For example, to determine an appropriate lower range frequency in accordance with the present invention, the therapeutic resonant frequency is divided by the number 2 as many times as necessary until a frequency in the frequency generating range of a device is reached. The power of 2 by which a therapeutic resonant frequency is factored will depend on the range of the electromagnetic spectrum within which a frequency delivery device operates. What does that mean? That means if you have a 60 gigahertz router, anything under 60 gigahertz, that router is going to be able to make, and it makes beams, which means it can send out more than one 60 gigahertz beam at you at one time. Same thing with your phone. 2.4, 5 gigahertz, 1.3, 1.9, 900 megahertz. And or when it scales up to 5G, it will have what they call a software-defined radio that will be tunable to any frequency within an acceptable frequency band agreed upon by the cell phone providers, the telecom providers, and the FCC. A scalable radio antenna capable of generating a wide range of frequencies. So, let's continue. In music, a similar adjustment would be termed moving to a higher or lower octave. Moving to a higher or lower octave would, in effect, cut the wavelength in half, while moving to a lower octave would double the wavelength. In accordance with methods of the present invention, therapeutic resonant frequencies of genomic material shifted by octaves to a lower octave in the electromagnetic spectrum by dividing the therapeutic resonant frequency by some power of the number 2. The lower octave of the therapeutic resonant frequency, while having a much longer wavelength, will resonate with the first therapeutic resonant frequency, just as musical octaves resonate with and amplify each other, but only when the octave shift is exact. So, the present invention comprises methods for determining therapeutic resonant frequencies of electromagnetic radiation for influencing a target genomic material, where the genomic material is surrounded by a medium. The embodiments of the methods include the following steps: determining the velocity of the electromagnetic radiation through the medium, meaning in this case through your tissues, it slows down as it passes through your tissues, determining the length of the genomic material, determining a first resonant frequency of the genomic material in one electromagnetic frequency range by dividing the velocity of the electromagnetic radiation through the surrounding medium by the length of the genomic material. Math, basic math. I know it sounds long-winded and complicated, but really what this is basic math. And then the basic math tied to constant algorithms, known constants, the speed of light, and the speed of electromagnetic radiation as it passes through something like skin versus fat versus muscle versus bone. All of these things can be put into a database and referenced by an algorithm. All of the compensations can be made, and then a signal be generated that has all of these compensations made, pass through a Fourier transform that then generates the right frequency with the right amplitude, modulated the right way, at the right polarity or polarization, and boom, off it goes into your body to read, write, and arithmetic your genes. So we just summarized a lot of that paragraph. Let's move on. Methods of the present invention further comprise determining the length of the genomic material by determining the number of base pairs in the genomic material. In the case of a single strand like RNA, it would comprise determining the number of bases rather than the base pair, single strand versus double strand. Using the spacing between the adjacent base pairs or the bases and multiplying the number of base pairs or bases in the genomic material by the spacing between the pairs. That's how they can figure out the length and then therefore the resonant frequency. So they understand what the number of base pairs are that they're looking for, and then they count the number of spacers in between those base pairs, and then they can come up with an actual length on average. Yeah, I used to be up in Tahoe, had a real bad month up there, and changed my life, and I will never go back because the people I were with were freaking demons. They were also Masons, but they were freaking demons. But let's continue. In a preferred embodiment...
Me too. I had a really wicked time up in Tahoe. In the same kind of regards, I was with a demon. It was crazy.
I was with the family of them. The parents weren't bad, but the upcoming children were horrifying, and the way they were handling their children was even more horrifying. And the rituals that they did and the things, it was just let's just say I will never forget those months, or that month, excuse me, those weeks. Those weeks are irrevocably seared into my psyche. Anyway, in a preferred embodiment, the base pairs or bases are spaced apart by an average spacing. This is important, which is a known value. So the average spacing between the base pairs in your DNA, that's how they get the general calculation. And determining the length of the genomic material comprising determining the number of base pairs or bases in the genomic material. Then they multiply that number, and they come up with a value based on the average spacing. Let's try to go through this a little bit more efficiently here. Here we go. So they talk about determining harmonic frequencies by multiplying therapeutic resonant frequencies in a range adaptable for use in whatever the device is. So you got to know what the device is, what characteristics it's able to transmit, and then do the basic math to calculate how to get your resonant characteristics out of your DNA. And it says that it's useful to determine the subharmonic frequencies, right? So you can go from the light spectrum down to the millimeter wave spectrum or down to the radio frequency spectrum by using the subharmonics of the resonant characteristics of your DNA or the genomic material, because it could be bacteria or viruses. It says that by programming a frequency emitting device, #cell phone, to emit the harmonic and subharmonic frequencies, target genomic material is selectively influenced with the therapeutic resonant frequencies. And the harmonic and subharmonic frequencies when the frequency emitting device, hashtag cell phone, emits these frequencies into the medium surrounding the target genomic material, because those compensations are made for passing through tissues. And we can look at the Google Soli radar patents that discuss being able to itemize, quantify, and understand everything about all of your tissues: cartilage, bone, different types of muscle, veins, nerves, blood flow, gaseous content, all of it, down to the millimeter scale. So the technology's there, and it's now deployed, and 5G's coming online with less than 1 millisecond latency anywhere around the globe. Features of the methods for determining therapeutic resonant frequencies of the present invention may be accomplished singularly or in combination in one or more of the embodiments of this invention. Blah, 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 blah. So, the present invention advantageously provides methods for determining resonant frequencies effective for stimulating or debilitating specific types of DNA or RNA genomes, genes, and gene sections. What does that mean? That means they can resonate and activate certain genes in your DNA. They can turn on certain genes or turn off certain genes in your DNA. They are literally able to epigenetically manipulate your DNA using resonant frequency techniques. And when talking about subharmonics, being able to do it in the millimeter wave and the microwave band to flip the epigenetic switches in your DNA, thereby changing the way you manifest as a person here on this planet. Now, just imagine when they standardize the DNA code in every single human through, like the release of a bioweapon, like COVID, or, the mandatory vaccines. Can you imagine what most children have in them now over the last 10 to 15 years of generally forced inoculations in states like California? And out comes this technology. Everybody has the same DNA, or pieces of DNA, fragments of DNA floating around. Why do you think they patented the coronavirus? Was it just for the vaccine? I don't know, but these are the things that I think of when I read this kind of crap. So anyway, another advantage of the methods of the present invention is that they provide means for readily and efficiently determining therapeutic resonant frequencies using widely available data. Oh, that's nice. So widely available data to determine resonant frequencies of things like your DNA. Predicting resonant frequencies. What?
Where's this widely available data? They're saying they have it, but if it's widely available, where is it? I'm not seeing it.
Well, I don't have it, but companies like Google may have it, and the hospitals have it, and the government health databases have it, because we have single payer healthcare in every country now, including the United States. So somebody has to house all that material. You mean like Amazon Web Service or Microsoft, who handles the biometric contracts for the United States government? They might have something like this. They might be in league with the hospitals. Who manages the hospital networks? Who stores all of the hospital's information on the cloud for health and medical record transportability, part of the HIPAA Act? Who houses that stuff? Well, whoever does likely has this kind of stuff.
Get them, TMC. Hey, did you post these in chat for everyone? Because I didn't see them.
These patents?
The 2 patents.
Yeah, I can do that. I'll do it towards the end. Make you guys stick around.
Sweet.
So actually, tell you what, dude, I'll flip them over to you real quick. That way you got them. And where the heck are you? There you are. You can share them out. And we got this large cryptographic patent. And I'll send this other one over to you because it really ties into Microsoft's 666 patent. This patent is a direct frequency modulating radio frequency sensor. And what this does is it pulls radiation out of the air passively. So just the radiation that passes by, it pulls that radio frequency energy out of the air and is able to use that energy and extract your biometric energy out, and using the energy from the ambient radio frequency signals that are sending and floating around through the air, actually transmit your biometric information through these patches without any generation of energy at all. All of the energy needed to do this is through the ambient background radiation. It's called backscatter radiation. And just take this and apply it to the blockchain patent with Microsoft, and then the patent with AT&T that discusses being able to network every one of your cells, and then apply Lieber's technology with the nanotech that could theoretically perfuse throughout your body. And you literally have the automation of the species in a nutshell, quite frankly. But there's the other one for you, buddy. Let's go back to this here, because we have 18 minutes left. So, So they talk about here therapeutic benefit, cost effectiveness of currently existing electromagnetic, magnetic, plasma, audio, or other frequency emitting devices. Other advantages in this patent, in this invention, provides easier and more efficient methods for determining resonant frequencies that significantly enhance therapeutic benefit, and provides cost effectiveness of currently existing platforms. Another advantage over the prior approach to identify resonant frequencies is that the present invention provides the advantage that utilize a simple biophysical model for explaining and understanding why specific resonant frequencies are effective. What does that mean? It means that they have a very good catalog and a very good database that says with a certain amount of accuracy, these frequencies work on most people. And the subtle nuances would be targeted or personalized therapy would be because, let's say, for example, I have a different sequence of genes, but because I'm me versus you, the spacing between my genetic pairs might be a little bit different than yours. Or let's say I have mutations, and those mutations specifically, right, have different distances between the genetic base pairs. That would make my genetic profile unique, like a fingerprint to me versus you. And so in general, the resonant frequencies work very well. But for personalized, targeted, absolute perfection, targeted therapy, you would need to have unique resonant characteristics with X amount of numbers after a decimal point that may differ person to person. But if you start backing off those numbers closer and closer back to the decimal point, then you get general therapeutic accuracy with these databases. And that's what they're talking about here, is that they've been able to quantify the resonant characteristics in a general sense that then, if applied through a database, can then be used and deployed amongst people generally. There that is in a nutshell. We have 15 minutes left. We're not gonna. Oh, here it is. It is known that base pair spacing in strands of DNA is not always consistent. Localized areas contain squeezing or spreading of base pairs in various ways. So use of an average base pair spacing allows for accuracy sufficient to determine therapeutic resonant frequencies in accordance with the methods of this invention. So to this point, right, everybody's a little bit different. But if you were trying to hurt people with this, it wouldn't matter. If you're trying to heal people with this, all of a sudden, those subtle variations do matter. And there's the difference, folks, in my opinion. So it says here that the one complete turn of a helix span, so one spin of your DNA, is 35.4 angstroms. That's a unit of measurement in angstrom. It's ridiculously small. And there are 10.4 base pairs in each turn. So 35.4 angstroms equals about 10.4 base pairs on average. Therefore, the spacing of individual base pairs on the axis would be 35.4 angstroms per turn divided by 10.4, which equals 3.4 angstrom spacing between each base pair. They're explaining in the patent how they get their average. Skinny Jeans comment's pretty funny. I like that. So that's it for this one. They talk about the refractive index. They talk about the unique resonant characteristics of different bacteria, different viruses, to provide examples and context around what it is. This might be interesting here. So in the example of in the body Borrelia burgdorferi genome, right? So probably some bacteria. Let's see what it says. Borrelia, resonant frequency of Borrelia. It doesn't say what it is. We can look it up, but it's some microorganism. Let's just leave it at microorganism. A multi-octave shift in the audio range can be reached by dividing the first therapeutic resonant frequency by 2, right? They talked about dividing it by 2 to the power of 29. So they're saying that this thing lives in the infrared range. That's its resonant characteristics, like your DNA. It lives in the infrared resonance range. But when they divide the resonant frequency of this thing, right, by 2 to the power of 29, they can then get this thing to resonate at 636.12 hertz. So we went from the infrared range down to the low audio range, somebody with a very, very low voice, still able to resonate and interact with this genetic material of the Borrelia burgdorferi, whatever this thing is pronounced. Let's look it up. So I want you to imagine for a moment that rather than this creature, oh, it's Lyme disease. Great. Lyme disease. That's nice. I think. Yes, only known cause of Lyme's disease. Bacterial species exists in North America and Europe until 2016 was the only known cause of Lyme's disease. So this genetic information, they can resonate and excite or make go away Lyme's disease with a frequency as low as 636.12 hertz. So if you added or you change this 29 to a 30 or a 31, you could go to even lower frequencies. So imagine what they can do with electromagnetic energy and the millimeter wave and the microwave that they say are completely safe because they don't ionize your cells, but they sure as hell can resonate your DNA. That doesn't sound too safe to me. I don't think the FCC is regulating algorithms and software that prevent this kind of stuff from being run over modern communication networks. 4G, 3G, 2G, radio frequency towers, digital television towers, satellites. Are any of these taken into consideration with technologies like this? No, they're not. The only thing that's considered is whether or not it heats up your tissues and causes the literal cooking of your tissues. That's it. Or a shock, because the magnetic field or the electromagnetic field is so great that it causes a shock. If it doesn't cause an overt noticeable shock or doesn't heat up your tissues to the point that it cooks them, anything goes, according to the FCC. So assume the position so that you can get cancer or your children can get cancer. How are those iPads working out in schools? How's those massive Wi-Fi pushes working out in schools? I'm wondering because I used to be the guy responsible for installing them, and it caused me great conflict to the tune that I lost my job. Where do people hold their iPads? Where do people place their laptops and their tablets when not on a table? Even if they are on a table, how far away are they from your reproductive organs? How far away are they from your lungs, from your intestines, from your heart, from your brain? And they can do stuff like this. And we haven't even begun to discuss the difference between near field and far field electromagnetic transmission characteristics. Because in the near field electromagnetic transmission characteristics, a lot of different things happen that are very different from the far field. And really, the only regulation with the FCC has to deal with far field. And the problem I have with that is that when we start looking at coil antennas for things like near field communication and wireless charging and hybrid antennas that are able to scale between different frequency spectrums for things like software defined radio, they emit frequencies that are in the range of meters per wavelength. And so again, I ask you, how far away is your mobile device from your body? When it's able to emit electromagnetic waves at the right resonant characteristics, theoretically, that have wavelengths that are the size of your front room for one wavelength, that fall within the near field radiation characteristics of an electromagnetic transmission from an antenna. But hey, the FCC doesn't really want to get into all that. Most people don't even know about that. And so they'll just sell it like it's all good at taking a test reading off of a single transmission, not a complex transmission where the waves overlap and intersect when a cell tower is in full force and full use. No, it'll be from a single antenna emitting a nice, neat frequency so they can check the box if they ever even do the testing. Check the box and say, look, we're within compliance. Oh, guess what? Your cell phones, they can scale their power. They know that if they're next to the body, they have to actually amplify the power because your body dissipates the signal. They know that they can turn down the power when you're not around it to save the battery. So you have a better user experience. None of this is regulated outside of the thermal characteristics and the shock value. And that is the fundamental problem I have with the FCC, particularly when we are looking at things like being able to use subharmonics to erupt, rupture, and destroy DNA, in addition to potentially activating specific genes on demand, on command. And then combine that with the ability to introduce genetic material into the entire global population through bioweapons leaks. Hashtag China virus. And we are beginning to see, folks, what modern warfare looks like. What else is in here? It gives you all kinds of different values for different types of DNA, different breakdowns. Let's end on a lighter note, shall we? Let's do this. Let's go back here where I was at. I think I've got some Twitter cat videos for the last few minutes. Terahertz radiation. Yay. Check this out. This was cool. We'll start this over. This is just ridiculous. We have to kill the volume. So it says here that they are able to image the nervous system of a chick embryo using light. So they can slice it like they do like an MRI or a CT scan, right, with light, and put the different planes back together again and reconstruct down to single neurons, reconstruct the image of this stuff. A new light sheet microscopy. Light sheet microscopy. They were able to take light waves, intersect the light waves, and image slice by slice by slice by slice an organ and come up with resolutions capable of understanding down to single neurons. 5 times thinner than the human hair can be seen and imaged. They are developing technologies. Open Water, you can look up Open Water. Mary Lou Jepsen is developing technologies to do this very thing, to do things like communicate with your brain. Synthetic telepathy with something that looks like a ski hat. And we will look at that at some point in the near future. But this is the kind of stuff they can do with the LED array in your cell phone, because that's what she says. They use ultrasonic transducers that are found in things in the general electronics market, and they use the LED arrays for like Face ID in the general market, electronics market. And those two things, cheaply made because they're manufactured in mass, are able to do things like what you just saw, and then be able to transmit energy in to the brain to talk to it. Check this out. This dude in a fallen tree. This is what this guy does with his time. This is beautiful. This is an excellent expression of human, in my view. You see what this guy did? Went inside this fallen tree and he completely carved this thing out. Look at this. Fishes, dolphins, massive amounts of texture and work. This is inside of a tree that fell down. It's absolutely freaking beautiful. And one more before. Oh, researchers have designed a camera so small an insect can wear it. Published July 15, researchers from the University of Washington announced their development of a tiny robotic camera backpack that can capture the viewpoint of an insect. Look at that. Hold on a minute. Now, I want you to look at the resolution of this thing. There it is. This is the other image. I don't know if they've enhanced it or what. But you want to talk about, modern forms of surveillance, folks. Why wouldn't you cyborg up a little bug like this and strap a camera on it and just remote control that guy through an open door or an open window and stick him in someone's office for corporate espionage or something? Anyway, I think
That's not creepy or anything,